In this world, to me, TEFCA is ready for takeoff. We've had fragmented and useful experiments on how payers and providers, doctors and health systems, stakeholders all across the food chain can work together. The non-technical trade barriers have always been the challenge. What am I allowed to share? What's minimum data necessary? Do I have an economic incentive to be a part of this? Is there even an alignment here to say we're aligned to coordinate the patient's best outcomes? All these difficult questions have been out there. There's been technical advancements forever, but there's been challenges on the business model. I think with TEFCA, we're taking advantage of the moment in time where there's a lot more clarity of what alignment looks like. I'm a little bit more a fan of opening up while locking down. So what do we know? We know that if a consumer is IAL2 certified, authenticated, they have the right to query the networks to pull their data. And I think that should work as a trust model in a manner that allows a consumer to register that when someone asserts the consumer's interests in pulling these records, there's a notification. Just like my bank will tell me, by the way,
Right.
someone's about to pull your data. Was that you? Did you mean it? We kind of, in other words, meaning I'd love to have a consumer to be able to register a service
Right.
to say, by the way, if my information is requested and transmitted, whether they think it's from me or they think it's from a provider on my behalf, let me know. So I have the ability to register the text message, for lack of a better term, when my information flows. I would like there to be that level of trust and agency for the consumer. Number one. Number two, for B2B transactions, opening up while locking down means I, the data supplier, want to have control over the filtered view of what populations you're seeking from me. I don't want to outsource that to a network. I want to have local control and confidence. And so the power of population health bulk FHIR APIs are that they, institutions, have full control over what the population looks like with each key. And if I'm like the key maker, instead of being an interface specialist at a provider or a payer, I can be the key maker specialist. I can very quickly and easily establish multiple keys. Well, frankly, I think the tipping point's already happening because the minute you feel like the network is abusing
Yeah.
the trust, then I hope everybody runs for the hills and goes to a product that allows you to have more confidence in
Gotcha.
what's happening. And so if a network knowingly or worse, unknowingly has a lot of uh, inappropriate uses of certain data sharing mechanisms, that's not great. And certainly not if there's a chance to like, what is the governance to say, hey, I don't believe this is kosher and how do we figure it out? If you were to be purists about it, I would love there to be treatment use cases on the network that meet the legal definition of treatment, inclusive of what the FAQs say are treatment.
Right.
But if those are abused in a manner that has more to do with the economic arrangements of the business model of the data sharing networks, let's be honest about how much money we need to support these networks and start thinking through where are uh, payer specific operational use cases that are not meant for population health, but are really just operational use cases where fees can be charged. How do we kind of come up with a plan for that? And then what about this gray area where it's not necessarily the payer initiating the query, but it's the ACO provider network that's doing it with incentives? Is that treatment? Yes. Should it be operations? No, but maybe there's some that would argue it's one half a dozen or other. So let's just be pragmatic about what is the cost to administer the data sharing infrastructure, bring down those costs over time, and then find an economic arrangement that allows us to have multiple pathways. And by having more use cases approved at price points that people see and transparently can decide if it's better than the alternative, we could actually have a thriving national infrastructure. We may go like a Goldilocks, not too hot, not too
Yeah.
cold. May
Okay.
have swung too hot with use cases that were inappropriate flying through the networks. That's a
Right.
no bueno. I'd hate for us to get to a cold where, oh, you've got the scarlet letter because your employer is X, but you're actually doing something that's actually
Right.
better for the patient. So we don't want to get into that, not too cold. There will be a Goldilocks. My gut tells me that opening up while locking down will enable a lot more of this um, uh, open data to flow. I
Yeah.
think a patient in a risk-bearing network will have all the attributes of security, quality management, um, accountability for results that will allow for that treatment comfort you were describing so that the doctor is there, but they're part of a team. And so there may
Right.
be that idea of a delegate designated by a doctor to go do the work probably is the most powerful thing that's coming out of the survey
Right.
and the TEFCA roadmap, which is that we can actually name a delegate. And that delegate could be a software company,
Right.
is a software company in many cases, that is explicitly there to do that kind of more proactive care management. So that could be a path, and that may be the Goldilocks path we need. The national economy and America's competitiveness, big picture, depends on us doing this right. Each incremental healthcare inflation point above the rate of inflation growth or economic growth, GDP, is a tax on the overall economy that we may not be able to afford as we forecast over the next 5 to 7 years. So by helping to ensure information flowing safely, securely, with accountability, we are in a position to make sure everybody gets world standard care, but also as a result, lower cost care. And that combination is what we've spent the last 10 years post Affordable Care Act experimenting. The time has come to scale and embrace. And I can't wait to see the early adopters come forward to show that the water is warm. And then the benefits will flow, I hope, like wildfire through the country.